Howdy, 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 everybody. It is Friday afternoon here in sunny Southern California. That's right. It's 95 degrees on, what is it, October the 10th, which is a bunch of bullshit. I'm going to say that right up front. And that is the last time I will try and curse here on today's show. But no matter what time it is, wherever you are, and how hot it is, you know that it is time for Cinema Crusaders, that show where we look at movies that are at least 10 years old. We talk about them, we review them, we give you our honest thoughts and feelings about them, and we do this all with the hopes that you will go back and watch some of these older movies so that you are familiar with these gems. Most of the time they're gems, but these classic movies that the movies of today are built on. Everybody is building on what came before. So, before we get in today's movie and I go any further, I need to introduce those gentlemen who are my fellow Cinema Crusaders who will be here to talk about the movie we are reviewing today. But before I do that, and I will do it in just a moment, I want to let you know that things have been a little delayed because life has been a little hectic, but we are back on schedule. Unfortunately, we were set to start our spooky season at the beginning of October, where we were doing horror movies. And a lot of stuff has happened. The horror movies have come and gone. There have been a lot of actors who have passed away. Promise, we didn't do that. So that was also responsible for some of the delays. So I'm announcing that spooky season for Cinema Crusaders will be going through Halloween, or not Halloween, Thanksgiving. So we're going to be giving thanks for spooky season all the way through Thanksgiving. So without further ado, let me introduce my fellow Cinema Crusaders. He is an author and a gamer, and he currently has one book out called The Dread, available on Amazon right now. And I know he's working on another book, Scorn, which I'm going to be helping out with some stuff on as soon as I get out from under a few things I'm doing, which I'm on the verge of doing. But he is also known as Macabre Mike Nunley, and you're going to see the reason why in just a second. But he is a font of knowledge on horror movies and mythology and everything in between. Here is Macabre Mike for Cinema Crusaders. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing pretty good. Glad to be back talking about some horror. Excited to find out we're going to be doing this into November. I was thinking I missed out on a little bit there, so pretty excited about that. I am really excited to be talking about this movie in particular. It is actually one of my favorites.
Cool. Very, very cool. And yes, we will be getting to this as soon as I introduce the next member of Cinema Crusaders. He is also an author, an editor, an educator, an owner of a dog, and a gamer, and just an all-around peach of a gentleman. Can we say that? Is that okay for me to say? Yes. We're talking about none other than Steve Shadewing Sellers. How you doing, Peach?
Yeah, that's a new one on me. But yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm still kind of working on some things that are kind of like irons in the fire right now, but not ready to talk about them. But as far as this movie goes, it's like there are some things I really, really like, and then there are other things that are like, okay, this is why I avoided horror for a long, long time.
Well,
but I would say I would describe it as dumb fun when it does that, rather than being bad or anything. I was entertained by it at least.
I'm sure we'll get into all that as we dive into the movie. I will say that one of the things that I saw this movie. I didn't see it in the theaters when it came out. I saw it when it was released on video. So back in the day, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, back in the day when a movie came out in a theater, it usually took about a year to 18 months before it came out on video. It wasn't like immediately available. So I think I saw this movie like 1987, 1988, somewhere around there. But the thing that got me about this movie is that Rutger Haeur is in it, and we're going to talk about that. But for me, Rutger Haeur is synonymous with Lady Hawk and Blade Runner. So it was very unusual for me to see him in this role. But I I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Rutger Haeur is fantastic in this. Rutger Haeur is fantastic in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So,
absolutely.
But that is part of our other discussion that we're going to get into. So before we do that, though, let me quickly and briefly introduce the movie's plot to all of you. So the movie opens up with a young man who is driving cross country from Chicago to San Diego. I believe he's going to be delivering a car for somebody who has moved out there to San Diego. And this young man is played by C. Thomas Howell, another very good actor. And of course, we've all been there before at one point or another. He's having trouble staying awake. He's smoking. He's drinking coffee. He's doing everything he can possibly do to try and stay awake. At one point, he falls asleep. I'll tell you right now, folks, if you ever fall asleep, even for a second while you're driving, get your ass off the road and nap, because it's not going to get any better. Been there, done that. It's a scary, scary moment. So, of course, so what does he decide to do? He's a hitchhiker on the side of the road and decides to pick up the hitchhiker so he can have some conversation to stay awake. Well, that was one of the worst decisions ever in the history of movies.
I think my description of that was, that a movie starts off on a dumb note or a character starts off on a dumb note when the first thing he says is, "My mother told me not to do this, but," and then proceeds to do it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. The minute that you say that, you pretty much set yourself up for failure in one way or another. So he picks up Rutger Haeur and immediately.
It all depends on the mother giving the advice, I think.
Yeah, well, that's true. Maybe if it's Mother Voorhees, maybe it's a good thing. So I don't know, Mike. You tell me, when Mama Voorhees tells you something and you ignore
do not pick up Rutger Haeur in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the rain. That's all I'm saying.
I'm afraid I gotta do what Mama says when Mama says things. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So the character picks up Rutger Haeur, and long story short, it's not long into the drive before we realize that Rutger Haeur has 0 F's to give, and he is quite fine with C. Thomas Howell knowing that not only is he planning on hurting him, he's planning on hurting him bad, in a permanent way. And at one point, they pass a car on the side of the road where he's already done the same thing to somebody else who picked him up, some other idiot who didn't listen to their mother and picked him up, So that happens. And there is a convenient plot point where Rutger Haeur didn't close the door all the way of the car. And C. Thomas Howell didn't notice it for the whole time and eventually shoves him out of the door, and he thinks he's gotten away. He's free and clear. He's going to drive on down the road. And he's living his best life. I think that Tom Petty was singing, and I'm, free falling with Tom Cruise in the back seat at one point. He's driving down the road. And everything is good when this car passes him, and it's a family in there. And they're all going down. They're trucking down the road. And who is sitting in the back with the kids? The good old
John Ryder.
Rutger Haeur. John Ryder. That's right. He's in the back with the kids. And then from there on in, it is just one shit show after another as he slaughters the family. He is going to slaughter a bunch of other people. He's going to kill cops. He's eventually going to pull a very, very good-looking woman, Jennifer Jason Leigh, who I have a lot of time for. Well, he split her in half. So there's two. I guess there's more Jennifer Jason Leigh to love at this point because there's
a little bit over there, a little bit over there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had to serve a little bit of Countless Corpses while we're doing this. So yes, and eventually he gets in and they pull him in.
The stab signal.
Yeah, exactly. I should have done. I'll get the stab signal for next week. He gets arrested. He is going to be taken away, and there's an underlying current here that I don't think I picked up when I watched this when I was in high school. And we're going to get to this, but long story short, eventually C. Thomas Howell finds his stones, that character, and ends up killing our bad guy at the end of the movie, which I think Well, I'm going to leave that because that's a discussion. That's this plot point that I want to talk about at the end because I think that's a thread that starts all the way in the very first scene, and we get the finish to that thread at the end. So that said, that's the plot of the movie. I want to hand it over to you guys real quick to give your general thoughts on the movie, and then we're going to dive deeper into it. So I'm going to start with Macabre Mike. This is his pick. What are your general thoughts on The Hitcher?
Well, I noticed today there is a Slipknot song called Sulfur. And in the chorus, it says, stay. You don't always know where you stand until you know you won't run away. That is such a theme for this movie. I believe there is a supernatural thing going on here, which I will elaborate on later. And
Okay.
I think that I think that there was a method to John Ryder's madness.
Okay. All right. That's fair. I didn't see a supernatural part. I saw it more as psychological, but I'm curious to see where you go with the supernatural.
I've got
part.
many
So,
examples for you.
all right, we'll definitely get to that. Steve, general thoughts on the movie. We've already heard a little bit, but
I kind of think like, okay, you could probably make sense of it with supernatural stuff because if you try to take it as like, real world type of stuff or anything grounded in any way, some of the stuff that it happens is absolutely ridiculous. And it gets like the minute that Ryder kind of gets thrown out of the car, it gradually gets more and more unrealistic as John Ryder turns into basically Rambo, and the horror villain tropes of the rules of reality get bent so that the horror villain can kill all these people just starts mounting up. It's like, how in the world did he kill all those guys, these trained cops? Never explained. I mean, how in the world is he tracking Halsey all over the state of Texas, which is, by the way, is like 1,000 miles wide? Never explained. It's just conveniently that's how it happens. How does he get in the hotel, which is probably was locked and chained without anybody noticing? He's a damn ninja because reasons. This is it's they're following the horror trope of when you least expect the villain, he's right behind you, regardless of what happens. And I don't necessarily think that it's bad because at least it's entertaining. The way that they do it is like ridiculously entertaining. It's just not plausible in any way. That having been said, there are things that I think are brilliant about this movie. I think that Jim Halsey's character arc is really well done. Like, he starts off being this kid who is completely clueless, does this really stupid thing in bringing in Rutger Hauer's character into his car. And then ever since then, he becomes more and more of a badass over the next hour and a half. And it's believable. Like, this guy just suffers like nobody's business. And he is, psychologically tortured by John Ryder in absolutely insidious ways. It's just really, really nice to see, him just gradually losing his inhibitions. He's becoming exactly what Ryder wants him to be in many ways, and especially towards the end.
Yeah,
I think it's great. And Ryder's character is really great. And yeah, I definitely think there's a method to his madness. Absolutely, I do. He is absolutely well realized by Rutger Haeur.
That's a very interesting point. And that goes right into my thoughts on the movie. But before I hit my thoughts on what was going on there, I was going to save this for the end, but let's dive right into this enchilada. Mike, I want to hear your supernatural theory on this movie and how that kind of fits into what Steve was talking about here. So, if it does at all. So,
okay. First, look at this through the lens of the original Halloween. You have a supernatural killer who targets somebody. We don't find out that Michael Myers is targeting Jamie Lee Curtis because she's his sister till later. In that first movie, though, it seems to be almost for no reason at all. But there is a reason to why he's doing it. And I think that same thing was going on with John Ryder and Jim Halsey. Number one, the fact that he did fly out of that car at 60 miles per hour and then just get up. This is very Michael Myers like. Okay. Then there was one of the more supernatural elements that really stand out to me is this. When they were at the police station and John Ryder was being interrogated, he's sitting down at the table and the interrogator asks him, he says, "What's your name?" And Jim Halsey whispers so quietly, the sheriff standing next to him couldn't hear it. "John Ryder." And John Ryder turns and looks right at him like he can see through the wall and everything.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There's also the finger in the French fries. Okay, I have studied this picture many times. When she is putting the fries on the plate, no finger. When she hands him the plate, it doesn't look like there's a finger in it. In fact, it looks like she's neatly stacked them around the burger. So she probably would have noticed if there was a freaking finger in there. Yet somehow he ended up with a finger in his French fries.
Okay.
There's also stuff like this. When Jim Halsey was leaving the sheriff's office after John Ryder had killed everyone, he grabs a gun. There's plenty of guns all across that station. He grabs a gun from one sheriff and takes off down the desert, ends up in that restaurant. John Ryder meets him there, takes one look at his gun and says, "Your gun's empty." How did he know that? He was holding the bullets from the gun. How could he possibly know that would have been the gun that he picked up? There's just too many things like this that imply some kind of supernatural thing. I think what is going on here is that John Ryder is some type of I don't know. Even Haeur said that John Ryder was a personification of evil. So if you think about him in that kind of fashion, I think that's when the interrogator asked John Ryder, he says, "How you doing?" And John just looks down and he genuinely says, sincerely, "I'm tired." I think he can't leave until someone kills him. I think he's done with this.
Okay. I agree with that. And I'm going to get to where I saw it, but I want to go to Steve first. What are your thoughts on that? And do you have anything to add to it before I'm going to throw my 2 cents in?
I think you're doing a lot of the work of the movie. That having been said, I mean, I think it's perfectly plausible. And to be honest, it's like, again, it's like the only other way to take it is that basically he's a horror movie villain being allowed to do horror movie things because the writer wants him to do them. But you know, it's like, but he is basically being written as like a Michael Myers, Jason type of figure, except that he's, you know, on the roadways of Texas, you know, basically hitching rides on people and murdering everybody in sight. Yeah, so yeah, could it have happened that way? Yeah. The only other thing I can think of is that he is basically like Rambo, and he has these ridiculous sets of skills that allow him, you know, to be able to do those kinds of things.
One thing. When Ryder was jumping out of the back of the police van, when he was jumping onto the truck, did you notice that not only did he have this snarly look on his face as he was jumping, there was actually a demonic growl as he did it?
I heard a lion's roar, but yes, I did hear that. So
yeah,
I heard that. Now, here's what I'm going to say. I'm not going to dispute what you are saying, Mike, at all. My contention is whether it's something mundane, you know, and we've given him superpowers of various types just because he happens to be in a horror movie and he's the villain, which is a common trope as well. You know, there's all sorts of situations in horror movies where when you become the bad guy, just like there's times when you become the good guy, suddenly you have plot strengths, you know, plot powers that you should never have. You know, it's like it's like stormtroopers. You know, you could be the best shot in the world. The minute you put that white armor on, you can't hit shit. So, you know, it's like, it's just one of those things. But it very well could be supernatural. My point, though, is that I don't think that it really matters, because the central theme, and I think that we can all agree on this, I hope, is that when you brought up the fact that Rutger Hauer says, I'm tired, that's what I get from this whole thing. He's killing people, in my mind, looking for someone to relieve him of this burden. And when he finds someone who eventually stands up to him and pushes him out of the car in Halsey, he's like, all right, now I'm going to make this kid's life a living hell beyond killing him. I'm going to make it worse than dying, because when he gets to the point at the end of the movie, my contention is if this movie went another half an hour, Halsey is going to become the next John Ryder.
It's very
He's going to
possible.
become the next serial killer, because he's been pushed past that point where now he is a killer. And the reason that really hit home for me was at the very end, when Rutger Hauer gets up and he thought Halsey thought he was dead, and he thought Ryder was dead on the ground, and he goes and he turns to leave, and he put his shotgun to his head, and he didn't pull the trigger there, and he turns to leave, and Hauer gets up and he looks disappointed, like, well, I guess I don't get the rest. He's going to kill him. And when Halsey either hears him or senses whatever happened, Halsey or Ryder did not pull the trigger right then, because he heard the click clack of the shotgun, and he smiles and he's happy. And Halsey turns around and blows his ass away, and he's happy about it. And then we close on the scene where Halsey's become a killer, and he's sitting there, and he's not throwing up like he was in the first part of the movie. Remember when he saw what happened to the kids and the family in the car? He's a stone cold killer now. And I honestly think that if it doesn't happen right then, he's become, the virus, if it's paranormal, the demon, whatever it is you want to attribute to, Hauer is resting now. Ryder is resting now. He doesn't have that burden anymore. He's probably rotting in hell, if you believe in hell. But now Halsey is living that nightmare, So it's like the journey of Halsey from kid to the next John Ryder. So
I think Ryder conditioned him. I think he basically trained him and pushed him along on that path. He's turning him into his own murder weapon. Yeah,
it's really big.
I'd like to elaborate a bit on that opening scene there with Ryder and Halsey in the car.
Yeah.
I think that Ryder set it up that way. He like we're talking about, he wanted someone to stop him. And I think he was like the guy in the Volkswagen Bug didn't have what it took. So he's in here, he's in the car with him. And when he gets in the car, I think that he closed the door and left it ajar on purpose to give Halsey an out. I think that Ryder saw something in Halsey that Halsey didn't even know was in there.
I think it's even possible that he gave everybody that opportunity. And because then there was because there was the test where he says, all you have to do is say, I want to die. And I am convinced, in fact, I know that if C. Thomas, if Halsey had said, I want to die, he would have died. He would have been killed right there. So
I think he has been doing this to a lot of different people. I think he was testing a lot of different people. Like, he's killed a lot of different people this way. And I think that he was trying to find one person that would have the stones to say, no, I don't want to die. I'm going to stand up to you. And then he was going to mold whoever that was into the person who would kill him.
Right. So, going back to what started this, if it's paranormal, that's fine. There's a lot of different paranormal ways we could go. If it's just psychological torture where this guy is demented, maybe someone did this to him in the past, and now he's tired of being this person and wants someone else to relieve him of it by killing him, and the best way he could think of is to mold them into a serial killer. Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
Whatever way you want to look at it, and I think Mike's points about the supernatural are valid, but whatever it is, in the end, what's important here is this transition is that Ryder is passing this grisly torch over to Halsey. And it's pretty disturbing to watch when you think of it in those terms, I would say.
There was a sequel to this. I haven't seen it. I thought any sequel to this would just ruin the story, so I didn't bother watching it. But
it was actually made decades later, so Haeur isn't even in it. So
right,
what's the point?
I do have an interesting tidbit for you that you might like.
Yep.
The original person who was going to get the role of John Ryder was Sam Elliott. I can tell you from personal experience, Sam Elliott is one angry dude. If he would have played John Ryder, I don't think it would have come across the same. He would have just been some angry guy, like rage killing people. Haeur is the one who brought that special flavor to the character, I think.
Yeah.
I will say that's an interesting casting choice, or at least possible casting choice, for one reason. There is a definite feeling of a Western in this movie, and not just because it's in Texas. Like the whole thing with the gun and the shootouts, and him being in the Texas prison all this time, and all that. It in the very end feels like a duel at high noon. There is a definite feeling of it being kind of like a modern Western mixed with a horror movie, and I just think that makes it interesting.
I am curious, geography-wise, though. How do you travel from Chicago in Illinois to San Diego in California and end up in Texas somehow in the middle? Doesn't it seem like the long way to go around?
You went south and took a right turn. So
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
No,
I mean, you can get to California straight from Texas, especially if you're going like Southern California.
Yeah. But I will say the thing with Sam Elliott versus Rutger Haeur is that I don't think Rutger Haeur, even when he's playing a good guy in a movie, always has this sense of menace about him. I don't know why it is, but there's like this underlying sense of menace in his eyes, like at any moment. And it's not like like insane menace to him. It's like a calculating evil.
And yet there is a weird feeling of nobility in the way that he presents it, and both here and in Blade Runner, I've noticed that.
You're not actually the only one to think so. C. Thomas Howell was afraid of Rutger Haeur on set, and that scene in the car where Rutger pulls the knife on him and puts the knife up to his eyeball, completely improvised. The fear in C. Thomas's Howell's face is a little genuine.
Well, even when he asks for the cigarette at first, and Ryder puts a cigarette in his mouth and it's hanging loosely out of his mouth, which I can never do. Like if I tried to do that, the cigarette would tumble down onto the floor or something. That's just I don't smoke, but that's just a level of cool I wouldn't have even if I did smoke. But anyway, so he does that, and he's just kind of doing this thing, and it's like there's nothing there right off the bat that should tell you that there's danger, but the way he is doing it almost screams danger anyway. So it's like, I don't know what it is. It's pretty good.
It's very much an unspoken sort of menace, and it's just the way that he carries himself.
Yeah. And he had it, and I absolutely agree with you. He had it in Blade Runner, when he played, and I can't remember the
Roy
name.
Batty.
Roy Batty.
Yeah. But that replicant, he's got a nobility to it, but he's got a sense of menace to it as well. Like when he would go in and confront the different people, like when he confronted, Rydell or the guy who owned the corporation, and he went
Terrell.
in there to talk to, Terrell. That's right, Terrell. It's been a hot minute since I've watched Blade Runner. So, but yeah, when he goes in there and he sees Terrell, it's that same kind of feeling. It's like, that you're in a bad situation and he's not even saying or doing anything yet. So, it's pretty crazy.
I will add this, and I mentioned this in the chat, but I would like to get you guys' opinions on this for the record here. In my opinion, John Ryder is like Roy Batty, roles that Rutger Haeur was meant to play. He was born
Oh,
to
yeah.
play these roles.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll be honest with you. I've never seen him in a role where I didn't think that he was a great fit. Like even Lady Hawk.
Right.
He's great in that movie. And it's a very different role than the other two, but he still brings much of the same stuff to it, and what he adds to it is pretty amazing. That said, let's jump right into talking about the actors and actresses in this movie. There are a couple that I think we have to talk about individually. And right off the bat, we've already done a bit of this, but let's start with Rutger Hauer and anything we want to add about his performance of this. I'm going to start with Steve. So,
yeah, I think we've pretty thoroughly, discussed him, but I will say, like, I do think it was interesting, the whole scene in the diner where he's just absolutely teasing with him and sort of playing with him. It's like, yeah, I know you're not going to kill me. He just can absolutely read the dude's fear, and he can just sort of tell, like, yeah, I'm a step ahead of you. What are you going to do about it? But at the same time, it's like, I think a lot of it is, I see potential in you. I want you to reach that potential. Because I think you can be the same kind of killer that I am, and be the kind of person that is actually worthy of ending me. He doesn't want to just be killed randomly on the street by a nobody. He wants somebody to earn the right to end him. And you can just sort of tell, like, there is a weird affection that he has with Halsey that he demonstrates in scenes like that. And which is really weird because he ends up killing Jennifer Jason Leigh later on. But it's like, you can tell all of it is method to the madness. And even like the end, it's like, you figure it out. I'm not going to tell you everything. You figure it out. And it's just the way that they play that, I just think was absolutely brilliantly done. And Hauer's it really takes an actor of Hauer's caliber to be able to make that convincing.
What would you add, if anything, to that for Rutger Hauer there, Mike?
Let's see. I guess that in that particular scene, I did see him being somewhat playful, but he did. I mean, it's with a mythology reference. He did finally tell Halsey what it was that he wanted from him, even though he didn't catch it the first time he told him. When he asked him, "What do you want?" He says, "You're a smart kid, figure it out." And he put the 2 pennies on his eyes. Granted, they're normally silver coins that pay Charon, but I think that was symbolic of that. He's saying, you need to kill me. And I'll add this. I think that perhaps somebody had to go through what Halsey went through to kill him. Acting wise, we talked about Hauer already, but I gotta give chops to Halsey in this for the stuff Steve was talking about already. With just his acting, you can see that growth through him, that he is not a killer. At the beginning, he is clearly not. He's not even a fighter. Then we see by the end, I'm not quite sure how you summon this on your face, but you can see that killer in his eyes at the end of the movie.
So you're talking about C. Thomas Howell's character?
Yeah.
Halsey? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot to add for Rutger Hauer than what's already been said. So yeah, let's go to C. Thomas Howell. I mean, it was obvious early in his career that he was a very, very talented actor. I'm trying to remember exactly what I've seen him in. I know there's other stuff I've seen him in. I'm kind of looking here right now. Well, he was in Soul Man. That's a funny movie. The Outsiders.
I haven't seen that since the 90s.
Yeah, Red Dawn. He was good in Red Dawn. So, but he was always a really talented actor, and I think you could see his acting chops in this movie. I don't think that he is clearly overshadowed by Hauer, and he spends a lot of the time on screen with an actor who is that accomplished. So, I think it's ballsy to be signing up to have that much shared screen time with an actor who is that accomplished, and B, to be able to hold your own is really saying something for your acting chops, because it could be really bad for your career if you end up on screen with an actor who is so head and shoulders better than you that you look like a buffoon. So I don't think that happened at all in this movie.
I will say that Jennifer Jason Leigh, when she's tied up to both ends of that truck, she sold that scene. You felt that scene because of her performance.
I also have to give a shout out real quick for Rutger Haeur. We don't want to overlook one of the most important roles in his career, where he played Lothos in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So we have to make sure that we reference that movie.
Yeah. Another Buffy reference. The guy that played the police interrogator is the same guy that was Quark on Deep Space Nine, and he was also the principal on Buffy.
The series or the movie?
Yeah, the TV show. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He was
I will say that I have only watched one episode of Buffy the TV show, because I was always a little disappointed because I'm a big fan of the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie, which I thought was brilliant because it was comedic and it combined like the comedy and the horror and everything. And so I don't know what little I saw of the Buffy Vampire show, the TV show, and like I said, I haven't seen that much of it. It felt like it was trying to take itself more seriously, but I could be wrong. So that's just me. All right.
I love the TV show, but that's another story.
Yeah. Let's get into a couple other characters, or a couple other actors in this show before we move on to some other stuff, though. Let's go to Jennifer Jason Leigh, and I'll start on this one. I think Jennifer Jason Leigh is an incredibly talented actress. I like her in quite a few things. She's definitely got a supporting role here, but I think it's an important role. I think that her death is critical to this journey that we're talking about with Halsey.
Absolutely.
Because if she doesn't die, she is the humanizing factor that I think keeps Halsey from becoming what he is towards the end of the movie. Unfortunately, or for her, she ends up dying pretty gruesomely. So what did you guys think of Jennifer Jason Leigh in this movie? And I'll go to you, Mike, first.
I thought her character was pretty good. I thought the bond between her and Halsey felt a little fabricated. Like, this is just some stranger that showed up. Sure, he was in a situation or whatever, but suddenly she's making him food, and she's like willing to hold up a couple of sheriff officers and save his life. And it felt mildly fabricated, I guess, as far as the relationship goes. But other than that, you're absolutely right that it was pivotal. It was her death that made him cross that line into I'm going to be a killer now. And it was the situation with the police that made him realize there's no other way to do this but to kill him.
She died so she could be reborn and create sexually explicit video gaming consoles in existence, or whatever that's called. Yeah,
I understand she also likes to pretend she's somebody else and take over their lives in single white female.
Although one of my favorite roles that she's ever been in, I loved her in the Hudsucker Proxy. So really, really good.
I liked her in the Hateful Eight as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can't forget she was in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. So she's been in quite a bit. And I think that I could be wrong. I'd have to look it up. But I think that I'm looking real quick. I think she's related to what's her name from Halloween.
Really? Their names are not spelled the same.
Well, I think she's I think she's the granddaughter of Vivian Leigh. Um,
Oh
And-
yeah,
And
Scarlett,
why?
yeah.
But that late Jennifer Jason Leigh's last name is Irish.
yeah, it's Leigh.
Yeah.
I could be wrong though. I have to look.
Yeah, that's something worth checking out. I don't know
Yeah.
offhand.
So it's funny to me as years go by, I keep realizing how much nepotism in Hollywood because I see people and they're like, "Oh, this is a legacy actor," and I'm like, "What?" And it's like the latest one I found out is that Chris Pratt is the son of someone famous from Hollywood, and I was like, I had no idea.
Yeah, yeah. His father-in-law is Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's another thing.
Yeah. So anyway, it's not like I was getting into Hollywood anyway, because look at this face, and we'll just leave it at that. All right, so that's Jennifer Jason.
Hold on. Have you seen Rob Snyder? Come on. No.
Hey,
his daughter is a singer, by the way.
I saw Deuce Bigelow. Rob's got something going on for him. So.
Yeah, he certainly did in that movie, that's for sure.
That's a big bitch. Oh, quiet over there, Eddie Griffin. So, all right. Anybody else that you want to bring up? I've got a few, but I want to kick it over to Steve first before we move on to something else with this movie.
Yeah, I'll just get a little bit into Jennifer Jason Leigh because I haven't really talked about her character at all, really. I will say, like, yeah, I'm kind of in agree that there's a bit of a Hollywood sort of romance thing going on. You can justify a little of it maybe based on them being thrown into circumstances under extreme stress and pressure. But beyond that, I mean, even that is kind of stretching it. You can just sort of tell, like, maybe there's more time that passes than we've actually been shown. All of this stuff takes, longer than like maybe weeks, some of the stuff going on. But even if that's the case, it's still like a little bit strange. But at the same time, I thought her character was fine. I thought the way that Nash kind of acted was kind of reasonable for the most part. It was a bit coincidental she ended up being on the bus. But, but that's the thing with this movie. Like there are times when things, are very kind of convenient so things can actually happen. Characters encountering each other, like how do they do that? There's a little bit of that there. But I think that her character at the very least contributes something. She is somebody who is very much, I think, representative of the side that Haeur thinks is holding Halsey back. She's not a killer either. Like she even sucks using the gun. So, and her instinct is like, yeah, I'm going to go and call my dad. It's not really like, yeah, I'm going to go out there and kill this douchebag. No. Like, she has very much normal inclinations, the kind that Halsey sort of represents at the beginning of the movie. And basically that is the part of Halsey that writers at the end of the movie.
There's also a little part of me that wonders if C. Thomas Howell was the first good-looking guy they've ever had in that podunk town, and maybe that was the thing.
Probably, yeah. It doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. No, there's a lot of things about this movie that are laughable.
Yeah. Did you see some of those original cops that got killed? I mean, those were not
right. If those are the pickings, I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah. I will. I'm going to give a couple shout out to some character actors that I recognize. Specifically, his name is Jeffrey DeMunn. He played Captain Estridge. I've seen him in a lot of stuff, and I'm looking to see where I've seen him. Like he was in The Green Mile. He played one of the guards of The Green Mile. That's where he was in The Mist as the old man. By the way, one of the worst endings of a movie ever. I wanted to go jump off a cliff after seeing the end of The Mist, but I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not going to make us watch that movie. Have you guys seen The Mist?
I have not.
Oh, shit. I'm going to have to watch that movie again for spooky season, aren't I? And make you guys want to jump off a cliff with me.
If you're full on telling us the movie is not, why you're not making it enticing?
You
maybe watch The Appointment. I'm just saying.
Hey,
I'm still here.
It's a really good movie. I'm just telling you that the end of the movie, you're just like, you want to shout out an expletive. That's all I'm saying. So it's like,
well,
Gotcha.
yes, but is it because of story or is it like hard hitting ending like The Dread?
you know what? F it. When we get off air, I'm not
All
going
right.
to make you guys watch it.
All
I'm
right.
just going to tell you what the ending is, and
Okay.
if you
Right,
decide
fair
to subject yourself to it, then you can. Yeah. So I wanted to point him out. He's been really good, and I enjoyed him in this movie as well. Let's get to some production value. Right off the bat, I'm going to say, from a filming standpoint, I think this is pretty, above average film. I don't know that we need to spend a lot of time on it. I don't think they broke huge ground on it, but it wasn't badly done as well. What I do want to bring up and see what you guys' thoughts are in this movie is there's not a lot of effects, but there's a lot of stunt work in this movie. What did you think of the stunt work in this movie? I'm going to go to Steve first.
I will say I really love how practical this movie is, especially with like the car chases and the explosions and things like this. I like, you can definitely tell they were destroying real cars. That this was not like the age of CGI where they just airbrushed everything. No. You can see like actual cars hitting each other and blowing up,
And actual
and flying
car
through the
chases
air.
with helicopters and everything else. Yeah.
So that I appreciate that kind of grimy, very tangible, physical sort of feel to the movie, and I think it kind of accentuates the Western feel I get from it. Like it definitely feels like a Western set on the road when you have these kinds of and they're using real sets, and it did look a lot like Texas. I don't know where they filmed it ultimately, but there were just points where, like particularly with some of the hills, there are definitely parts of Texas that are that hilly, and all of that. So I appreciate how real it felt in those particular scenes. It's not groundbreaking and it's not brilliant, but I think it was convincing enough for what they were selling.
Absolutely. And I will also say, as someone who has driven cross country multiple times before I go to Mike, there are lots of parts of this country, especially when you get out to the west, where you're driving and you feel lucky to have air, let alone anything else. And there's no way in hell that you are opening your car door for anybody. So
I have driven long stretches of Texas back roads, and no way would I stop to pick up Rutger Haeur. No, I would not.
You see a nun on the side of the road, be like, nah, I'm not being fooled by that shit again. Sorry, lady. You keep driving. Mike, what'd you think of the stunt work and everything else in this movie from that standpoint?
I thought the stunt work was excellent. The special effects were really good. There was not a single moment in the movie where I was pulled out of the moment. It was fully believable, and I was in it the whole time. And that's a sign of doing a really good job, if you ask me.
Now, here's a question I have for both of you, and I definitely want to hear from both of you on this one. All right, this is a horror movie. The subject matter is very gruesome and gory. However, this is the least gruesome and gory movie from actual visual effects that I've ever seen out of a horrific, gruesome, and gory movie. That said, I didn't really miss it that much. Could it have given me more shock? This is just me personally. I'm going to go around to each of you. Could it have given me more shock factor if I had actually seen the cut up forms of the kids and their family? Yeah, it could have, but I knew what was going on. And honestly, what I could envision in my head is probably 10 times worse than anything they could have ever shown me. So that said, I want to go around. I'm going to go to Mike first. What did you think of that?
I think that the theater of the mind is the best place for horror to take place. It is. They gave us enough information to be able to visualize it. We knew that he cut off the guy's legs and arms and head. So right there, bam, we have a modus operandi. We knew that then that had to be what happened with the family. That had to have been how they died. But there was a little bit of extra thing in there too. Did you notice that Ryder wore 2 rings on one finger?
No, I didn't see that, but that's not cool.
Granted, his wife must have had absolute sausage fingers for her ring to fit on Ryder's finger. But did you not? Where do you think the ring came from?
Yeah, I didn't catch that. Thank you for pointing that out to me.
And the finger and the French fries,
yeah,
was probably one of them.
Fantastic. Well, good. I'm not going to be sleeping well tonight. Cool. Steve, what did you think of that aspect of the movie?
I think it's very Hitchcockian in the best way. And I think, and I don't think it's necessarily like entirely an artistic choice. I think a lot of that was done to keep the costs on the movie low. And a lot of times, when you're doing that in an artistic way, you end up getting really good results. I'm a very much like do more with less. I think theater of the mind does tend to work. Again, but this is like I'm kind of like in a little bit in the Hitchcock tradition in that I don't necessarily want to see a ton of gore unless there's a reason for it to be there. Would this movie have been better, showing Jennifer Jason Leigh getting cut in half and having her bleed out all over the place? I don't think so. I think you get the same result and maybe somewhat better. I don't have a problem with that.
And honestly, I think that works for all sorts of different aspects of movies. Another great example I could think of is, for years, James Bond would make some sort of quip, and you'd see some clothes fall to the floor, by a pair of legs, and then we'd fade to black, and you wake up the next day, and he's getting dressed, and you knew what happened, but you didn't have to show us all the ins and outs. I'm sorry, that was a bad pun. I didn't mean to do it. The whatevers of what was going on between Bond and the latest Bond girl.
And they used to do that kind of stuff very artistically. And another Hitchcock example is North by Northwest at the very end, where you can tell Cary Grant and even Reese Sage are about to go to bed on the train. And then they just show the train going into the tunnel.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can definitely see what happened, what they were implying. It's like that's how you got clever with that kind of stuff back in the old days.
On the note of the gore, Eric Red, the guy who wrote the story, he wrote a script that could have easily gone 3 hours, and they had to dial it back. One of the things they dialed back specifically was the gore in the story. So I tend to think it was an artistic choice.
Well, and they might have been going after a rating. They may have wanted not to be lumped into this being a pure slasher film. They wanted to be more, a subgenre, like a psychological genre. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that could have happened, but
keep in mind it was an HBO film from like the mid '80s when HBO was actually willing to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, all right. What else? I was going to say something else, and it is completely slipped my mind. So obviously, it wasn't that important. Where do we go from here? Okay, so we are going to, like I said, we're going to be doing spooky season through Thanksgiving. Steve, would you like to pick the new movie, or would you like me to pick one to give you another week to think about a spooky movie? So.
I don't have one right at the moment. Just give me a little bit of time and I'll see what I can do.
All right. So I'm going to announce it now, but I'm going to put 2 movies to you, or 2 things to you, and then I will tell you what movie I'm thinking of. So the first movie I'm thinking of is my standby favorite, which is paranormal horror. I love paranormal horror. That is kind of my bailiwick. Just like Mike really loves slasher movies, and I appreciate them. I love paranormal horror movies. The other one I have, the other one I have, and this is why I'm a little hesitant to do it. It's not strictly a horror movie. There's scary stuff in it, but it stars Don Knotts and Tim Conway.
Oh, I know the one you're talking about.
So
yes, I would love to do that.
But the reason I'm bringing it up, and I want to make sure Mike's okay with it, is that it's got Don Knotts and Tim Conway type humor in it. So It's a good movie. It's a funny movie. I just don't want to make you watch a movie that you're not gonna like enjoy. So, would you rather me do the paranormal horror movie, or would you like to do the movie that Steve probably knows? And the movie is called Private Eyes. So,
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
All right. Just as a general rule, if we're gonna do horror comedy, my go-to is Evil Dead. If it doesn't meet that standard, I'm probably not gonna like it.
let me think for a moment. It's not scary enough or horror enough to meet that standard. So I'm going to put that aside right now.
No, it's not.
Yeah, maybe we'll do it.
It's fun haunted house type stuff, really.
Yeah. So the movie I'm going to pick stars Lou Diamond Phillips. It is a horror
First
movie.
Power?
It is the First Power.
I knew it. Yes.
Yes. We're going to do the First Power. Love that movie. We're going to cover that movie. Really, really cool. Cool concept, cool execution. I think all of you out there are going to enjoy hearing us talk about it. And I would encourage you to watch it as well. So until then, I'm going to say thank you to my Cinema Crusaders here. Thank you so much, Mike.
Hell yeah. Glad to be here, man. Loving this stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve.
Yep. Glad to be here.
I am back up and running and everything, so make sure you check us out on Sunday on the Circle of the Seven Dice. We will be playing Alien RPG again, so you can see that. Check that out. And we will be back next week on Friday to talk about the First Power. So until that time, we will see you then. All of you have a great weekend. Snuggle up with somebody. It's October. Watch a scary movie. Guys, you can use the excuse to get that girl close to you. Girls, you can use the excuse to snuggle up next to that man because you're so scared. Whatever you want to do, watch those horror movies. Have a lot of fun. We're out of here. Bye, everybody.
See ya.